Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Day is a breaking in my soul. Rise up from morning slumber. Rise up from morning slumber. Rise up from morning slumber. Day is a breaking in my soul. Rise up and hear your calling. Rise up and hear your calling. Rise up and hear your calling. Day is a breaking in my soul. Kasribane yadai 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 olam kasribane yadai 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 olam kasribane yadai 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 Olam kasedibane yadai yadai yadai. I will build this world with love. Yadai yadai yadai. And you will build this world with love. Yadai yadai. And if we build this world with love, yadai, 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 then God will build this world with love, yadai, yadai, yadai. Olam kasinibane. Yadai, yadai, yadai. Olam kasedibane. 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 Yadai. chasidi bane yadai yadai yadai.
I want to start this morning with a sad tradition of this community. We lost on July 27th a member of this congregation, Margaret Jean Ziegart, known by many of us as Ket. She was just a month shy of her 100th birthday. Ket raised her family here, her grandkids. She was an artist. For a while, she was the assistant to the art director at Vogue magazine, friends with Andy Warhol, a student of printmaker and a master artist herself, a native of Michigan. Copies of the obituary that she largely apparently wrote herself is out on the table just past right where the name tags are. And I invite you all to read it. I think our lives in this tradition of Unitarian Universalism are another sacred text that we bounce our lives up against for wisdom and inspiration, and sometimes to learn lessons that we don't want to repeat in our own lives. And reading her obituary, I was reminded of all the literature right now about loneliness and a sense of lack of meaning in our lives, and the ways in which meaning is so often made by our connections to one another and plowing ourselves into the institutions and relationships in the world. And Ket did that like no one, on steroids. It's such an inspiration to read. I hope we run out of copies and you can look it up. And I just want to read you one of the paragraphs at the end. Ket marched to the beat of her own drum. She was fiercely independent, deeply fair, and a brilliant artist. She championed those in need, loved nature, read at lightning speed, and never backed down from a challenge. A tireless advocate for her community, she was a formidable presence and a passionate force for good. We extinguish a candle in honor of her life, and I think all hope that we can carry the inspiration of those words into our own. Welcome. Welcome to Faugust, which today at Franklin and Geary is spectacularly sunny, which we're going to take as a sign from the gods that we are particularly blessed here at First U Society of San Francisco. If it's your first Sunday, a special welcome. I hope you got a copy of the order of service as you came in, and if not, you can duck out, and there are some on the back table so you can follow along. If you're online, welcome from wherever this Sunday morning finds you, if it is Sunday morning when we find you. And you should have a link to the order of service also, so you can follow along. Thank you all for being here. There are hearing-assisted devices in the back that our ushers have if you need them, a masked-only section to my left if you need that for your own comfort, a pet-friendly section here on the right, and if there's anything else we can do to make you fully comfortable and make it easy for you to be here this morning, please let us know and we'll try to do so, if not immediately, then in the future. I want to thank our AV team, Jonathan and Eric, for making this possible and bringing it out beyond these walls, to our ushers and greeters, to our facilities team who made the building ready. And I want to say our facilities team this morning is Kelvin Jones. So please excuse the building. It looks great to me, but if you see anything that doesn't look perfectly presentable, or you have to wait long or do something on your own, It is a funny way, I think, that we can celebrate serving our mission. The fact that we have one person working today because the rest of the staff worked all weekend, and or we are giving them vacation so they can be deeply in their own lives. We had, among other things this weekend, a huge wedding and hosted a full day of the drum retreat yesterday. Drum stands for Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries. And between those two groups, they took over the building. Lori Lai, I'm sure, is resting up. I doubt she's here, and if she is, please someone bring her some coffee. This building, this community is supposed to not just serve us, but be this welcoming space for people to connect and to deepen in their values of love and inclusion and justice and compassion. And so we're so grateful that the building was put to such good use this weekend, as it so often is. Today we are hosting an incredible Sunday of worship and programming. We are really blessed. I am blessed to have on the chancel with me Matt Meyers and Asani Sewell. So let me tell you about both of them. Some of you may remember Matt, who joined us 2 years ago around this time. Matt, him, is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist with a long background as a musician and a worship leader for Unitarian Universalist congregations. If you watched or participated in our General Assembly this year or in past years, you probably saw a lot of Matt. He lives in Boston, but he travels. He is this itinerant worship leader, which is why we're lucky to have him, bringing the good news of Unitarian Universalism to hundreds of congregations around the country. And he serves as the director of operations for Sanctuary Boston, which is a contemporary Unitarian Universalist worship community that centers music and ritual. And Sanctuary Boston's worship band just released an album of original Unitarian Universalist music that is available on a table. It'll be right where Matt and Asani and I are standing after worship. There are 3 copies if you want to get one today of the CDs, but you can sign up if there aren't enough. And we are just so grateful to have you here. And on the chancel co-leading worship with me is Asani Sewell. So most clouds, we hope, have a silver lining. And one of the silver linings of COVID was Asani Sewell. She started joining us from her home in Portland, Oregon, where she is a psychologist who was a professor and now works out of a hospital. And we have just deepened in the sense of what it means to have remote partnerships and memberships. And so Asani joins us in person a few times a year, like this weekend, for reasons you'll hear more about. And she is the current leader of our Journey Toward Wholeness committee. We're transitioning her into chairship this summer. And she's here this morning not just because it's a great weekend whenever we can get her, but because we are doing this celebration of the 60th anniversary of the signing of the Voting Rights Act. And you'll hear more about our effort to work with Reclaim Our Vote. The offering is going to that organization this morning. And Matt was already scheduled to lead, and Matt does a lot of his worship around social justice issues. So there was this serendipitous chance to make this Sunday work in ritual and then in the programming after worship to move forward our conversation about this anniversary and where we're called to live into the values-centered work it calls out of us in this moment in time. So, welcome. You'll hear more about what happens after Sunday in our invitations. Our opening words are by Adrienne Rich, who writes, "My heart is moved by all I cannot save. So much has been destroyed. I have to cast my lot with those who, age after age, perversely, with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world." It's in that spirit we worship together this morning. And in that spirit, let's light our chalice. If you're at home and you have a chalice, you can light your own or a candle. Please join me in saying the words that are printed in your order of service. We light this chalice for the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the fire of commitment. We light this symbol of our faith as we gather together.
Our opening hymn is Bright Morning Star. It's a hymn from the Unitarian Universalist hymnal, but we're going to do it this morning with a different melody and also different lyrics. It's the same song, I assure you. But a little bit of today's service is looking back at tradition and imagining, as we imagine new futures, telling the stories of our history, of how we got to where we are, and imagining how we get to where we might be. I come from New England, and in New England, we're very aware that our Unitarian Universalist tradition is descended on our Unitarian side from the Puritans. And once upon a time in our Unitarian congregations, before we were Unitarian, there was a great controversy that swept through our communities, tearing people apart, setting families against each other. It was the heresy of whether to allow hymns in church. And before the heresy of hymns came and divided us against each other, our ancestors only sang the Psalms, and they only sang them in call and response. And so this morning, we're going to do this old song in a new way. We're going to do it call and response. We're going to do it as the Puritans would have liked in that sense, but we're going to add some rhythm and goodness knows some theology that would have them rolling over in their graves. And I would be remiss not to mention this song is off of my congregation's new album, which I'm so excited to get to be sharing. It goes like this. Bright morning stars arise, and bright morning stars arise, and bright morning stars arise, and day is a breaking in my soul. Can we try that? Bright morning stars arise, and bright morning stars arise, and bright morning stars arise, and day is a breaking in my soul. All right, I think we got it. Please rise in body or spirit and sing out like you sing in the shower. Here we go. Bright morning stars arise, and bright morning stars arise, and bright morning stars arise, and day is a breaking in my soul. It sounds good. Rise up from morning slumber. 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 Day is a breaking in my soul. Rise up and hear your calling. 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 Day is a breaking in my soul. Let's add some more rhythm. Bright morning stars rise, and bright morning stars arise, and bright morning stars arise, and day is a breaking in my soul. Oh, lift your voice to heaven. 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 Day is a breaking in my soul. We'll build this faith together. 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 Day is a breaking in my soul. And bright morning stars arise, and morning stars arise, and bright morning stars arise, and day is a breaking in my soul. Day is a breaking in my soul. Day is a breaking slowly in 11-part harmony. Day is a breaking in my soul. Well done. We invite you to remain risen as you greet your neighbor. Say hello to an old friend and say hello to a not yet friend. Those of us joining online, we invite you to say hello in the chat and greet each other as well.
Jonathan Silk, there you go. Give me some power. All right, everybody. This time I'm gonna invite you back to your seats, but remain standing if you're, or rising in spirit if, as you're able, and let's say our unison covenant and remain standing for our doxology. The covenant, as you remember, are these pieces of promise that we make to one another about how we want to be together in this life of faith. Because we are not bound by a creed, but by these promises. So let's say some of them, the ritual ones printed in your order of service. Please join me. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another.
So good to be with you all. I want to say a special hello to my folks online, my community online there. Hello. I'm in person today, and also a big hello to my family that's watching, my mom, my sister, and my aunt. My mother visited me and my partner in our home in Portland, Oregon recently. On a bright and warm sunny afternoon, sitting on the patio, my mom and I reminisced about her life in particular. And on those easy summer afternoons, those chats with my mom revealed that community, interconnectedness, and the long foray for change are hallmarks of a people, my family, who at every moment struggled for justice and a better life for themselves and future generations. But they didn't do this alone. My family story is, yes, one of justice and a better life, but also unmistakably community too. My mom grew up in Lawnside, New Jersey, a town that was established in 1840 and incorporated in 1926 as the first independent, self-governing Black municipality north of the Mason-Dixon line. First founded by abolitionists, Lawnside was an important site in the Underground Railroad, offering refuge for enslaved Blacks who were fleeing slavery, and about exit 44 off the Garden State Parkway, if that matters to you. But my grandmother and grandfather first arrived in Philadelphia well before my mother's birth in 1948, as they fled their hometowns in Florida, escaping the terrors of the Jim Crow South. You may know that Philadelphia was one of the cities that was part of the Great Migration. The Great Migration was a mass movement of African Americans from the rural South to industrial cities of the North, the Midwest, and West between 1916 and 1970. They were escaping racial violence, Jim Crow laws, and limited education and economic opportunities in the South. My grandmother only had a sixth grade education. My grandfather could only find menial hard labor. And so 6 million Black Americans, including my grandparents, migrated in search of better jobs, education, and a chance to build a new life. After spending a few years in Philadelphia as a young couple, they're about 35 or so, my grandparents moved across the Delaware River to Lawnside, New Jersey, the all-Black town with a good reputation, opportunity, and safety for their then 6 children, later to become 8, with my mother being the baby of those. And it was there that my mother and her 7 older siblings grew up, in a town where, as my mother describes it, everyone was Black, from the man who delivered milk to your home, to the family dentist, the accountant, physician, teacher. My mother grew up with representation all around her, surrounded by Blackness. And it was in that context that my mom believed that she had the right to all parts of the American dream. Can you imagine? I mean, what a contrast for my grandparents, and unknowingly for my mom and her siblings. In the first part of my family story, the rural South, where racialized violence, poverty, and trauma were everyday experiences. And then the all-Black town founded by abolitionists for the next part of our story, where my family had access to dignity, safety, and their dreams. Yes, threaded through all the story of my family is community, the struggle for justice, and working together to make change. A story that began in 1840, 185 years ago, when Black and white abolitionists struggled together in community to establish a town that was a safe haven for Blacks, a home for my grandparents, aunts, uncles, my mother. So what's possible when we contribute in small and large ways to a long struggle for justice, and when we do that with and surrounded by community? We can, like my grandparents, find a home in the community of our dreams. We can take the 6th grade education of my grandmother and transform it into master's degrees for my mom and aunts in 1 generation, and a PhD and medical degree for my sister and I in 2 generations. We are all, each of us, tied to community and to struggle in those communities. Our choices today will impact future generations. So what's your lasting story? What will be your contribution?
Our offering this morning will go to the organization Reclaim Our Vote, a voter outreach program of the Virginia-based Nonpartisan Center for Common Ground. You can read more about that organization and its work in our order of service and online, and you can come learn more about the work and the way we'll be participating in it after service today. And so, as part of the story we write in all the ways that we write it, our morning offering will be given and gratefully received.
There are more waters rising, this I know, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know. There are more waters rising, they will find their way to me. There are more waters rising, this I know, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know. There are more fires burning, this I know, this I know. There are more fires burning, this I know. There are more fires burning, they will find their way to me. There are more fires burning, this I know, this I know. There are more fires burning, this I know. There are more mountains falling, this I know, this I know. There are more mountains falling, this I know. There are more mountains falling, they will find their way to me. There are more mountains falling, this I know, this I know. There are more mountains falling, this I know. I will wade through the waters, this I know, this I know. I will wade through the water, this I know. I will wade through the waters when they find their way to me. I will wade through the waters, this I know, this I know. I will wade through the waters, this I know. I will walk through the fire, this I know, this I know. I will walk through the fire, this I know. I will walk through the fires when they find their way to me. I will walk through the fires, this I know, this I know. I will walk through the fires, this I know. I will rebuild the mountains, this I know, this I know. I will rebuild the mountains, this I know. I will rebuild the mountains when they find their way to me. I will rebuild the mountains, this I know, this I know. I will rebuild the mountains, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know. There are more waters rising, they will find their way to me. There are more waters rising, this I know, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know.
I'd like to invite us into a spirit of prayer and meditation. So find a way to feel comfortable, feet on the floor if that makes you feel more grounded, whatever it is that allows you to be more present. I invite us each to breathe in this present moment, made possible by each of the breaths we take, each beat of the heart, the steady pumping of those steadfast hearts of ours, and the legion of red blood cells who are rushing oxygen to our flesh, nutrients carried in each of us by a river that runs through us, and our minds present to so much and oblivious to so much that we take for granted. So breathe in, presence. Breathe out what clutters and distracts from this, from the gift of this. This morning, we are present to and name the long arc of the journeys toward wisdom, of the work of incarnating compassion in our systems and in our habits of state, and in each of us as we play our part. We name all the struggles that keep us up at night for a world that is more fair, bring to mind the shape that that work takes for each of us in our life choices, all the ways we might draw the circle wider, the moral imagination that lives in us, beautiful, idealistic, possible. And this vision of a world where more and more people feel safe and loved and respected and protected inside those circles we draw. And this morning, in the spirit of this, we give thanks for the stubborn and the determined and the afraid who still acted with courage when they could, and the powerful through time who have used their power to stand up to the powerful and yield a little privilege and modeled a life that was not about the accumulation of power or wealth at the expense of others. And we give thanks. We give thanks. We remember this morning that nothing we inherit is free, and that the price we are asked to pay in this karmic kitchen of a world with all its emergencies and need is to pay forward the stubbornness and courage and generosity of spirit and spending of power and influence and love as a verb, as publicly, as visionary a version of that paying forward as we can. To stretch the circle of love and justice wider than it was when we stepped into it. And so we gather this morning in a spirit of paying homage to our ancestors and gratitude and calling. I want to invite us into some shared silence now. And in that time that's so rich and open, to also allow for those who might be carrying grief with them here today, or loss, if you wish to witness to that loss collectively, and I invite you, if you'd like to do so by standing or placing a hand over your heart or both. In this world that often denies grief and loss and death, we acknowledge its presence together as something we carry but don't have to hold alone. And as a witness to the grief that is the other side of the love that we were blessed with, and the price of the love we risk so gorgeously to live into. So I invite us into the vast openness of silence.
has made a place for you where everything is new. Love has made a place for you where everything is new.
Words from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. From the immemorial, men have lived by the principle that self-preservation is the first law of life. But this is a false assumption. I would say that other preservation is the first law of life. It is the first law of life precisely because we cannot preserve self without being concerned about preserving other selves. All people are interdependent.
Love has made a place for you where everything is new.
These words by James Baldwin. For nothing is fixed forever and forever and forever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down the rock. Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. Will you sing with me? Love has made a place for you where everything is new.
Love has made a place for you where everything is new.
Words by Patrisse Cullors, co-founder of Black Lives Matter. While there is so much hell on earth, so much pain, there is also this, a love we could not have predicted, but always imagined. A love that rocks us and a love that holds us. A love not ordinary.
Let's sing twice through together in 11-part harmony this time.
Love has made a place for you where everything is new.
One more time.
Love has made a place for you where everything is new.
Amen. In my own congregation, we have a saying which is we're going to start with some music and we're going to finish with some singing as well, and in the middle we're going to do a lot more singing. So the beloveds, let's continue in song. This song was written by a powerful woman named Fea Ora Rose Toure. She not only founded 12 different organizations working for civil rights and racial justice, in addition to her side gig, I guess, as a songwriter and a playwright and also a poet. In addition to all that, she had a day job, which was that she was the first black woman judge in the state of Alabama. After she retired, she promptly was arrested for civil disobedience a few years ago, protesting the construction of a Confederate monument. she's still around and still organizing and still speaking truth to power. So let's sing this song in honor of her and then all of those working for a just world, those of us tied to community and tied to struggle. It goes like this. I'm gonna lift my sister up. She is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sister up. She is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sister up. She is not heavy. If I don't lift her up, if I don't lift her up, if I don't lift her up, I will fall down. Can we try that? I'm gonna lift my sister up. She is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sister up. She is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sister up. She is not heavy. If I don't lift her up, if I don't lift her up, if I don't lift her up, I will fall down. We invite you to rise and bow to your spirit. I'm my brother up. He is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my brother up. He is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my brother up. He is not heavy. If I don't lift him up, if I don't lift him up, if I don't lift him up, I will fall down. My sibling, I'm gonna lift my sibling up. They are not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sibling up. They are not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sibling up. They are not heavy. If I don't lift them up, if I don't lift them up, if I don't lift them up, I will fall down. My neighbor, I'm gonna lift my neighbor up. They are not heavy. I'm gonna lift my neighbor up. They are not heavy. I'm gonna lift my neighbor up. They are not heavy. If I don't lift them up, if I don't lift them up, if I don't lift them up, I will fall down. My sister, I'm gonna lift my sister up. She is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sister up. She is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sister up. She is not heavy. If I don't lift her up, if I don't lift her up, if I don't lift her up, I will fall down. Let's take a deep breath. You may be seated as you exhale and set the song down gently. As today's service is about looking back to our history as we imagine new possibilities for the future, how moving to begin with the words of an obituary of someone who lived such a powerful life. I once heard someone say that some of us are trying to live lives that will make for a good resume, and some of us are trying to live lives that will make for a good eulogy. And on this anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, as our country is still wrestling with who gets to vote and whose voice matters, in this time of unpredictable and dramatic headlines, there is a question beneath so many of these debates, a question of how will we care for each other? And when I think of care, I often think of healthcare because one of the most basic answers to this question, one of the most practical, is that when we are hurt, when we are injured, when we find ourselves in an emergency, we call for an ambulance. Let me tell you a little bit about ambulances. I grew up in a world where ambulances are something to be taken for granted. But paramedics, friends, have not been around as long as I, at least, had imagined. Before there were paramedics, it wasn't always clear whose job it was to rush someone to the hospital when they were injured. Before we had the system we have now, well, there was no system. Sometimes it was the firefighters who would pick people up. In some places, it was the local funeral home, which I'm going to be honest, I don't love that. I can just picture having some horrible accident in my home and hearing someone in my housemate family yell out, "Quick, Matt's down. Someone call the funeral home." No, thank you. More often than not, though, it was the police who dealt with medical emergencies. The problem, though, is that neither the police nor the firefighters, and certainly not the funeral homes, had any medical training beyond the most basic first aid. So their only job was to get people to the hospital as fast as they could so the real treatment could then begin. This was an ongoing health disaster in our nation. It was a problem because people were injured and they weren't getting real medical care, and particularly in communities of color where the police were the ones responsible bringing them to the hospital, it was often those same police who were ignoring or often harassing folks in African American neighborhoods in particular. Not all cities were founded by abolitionists. So this problem came to a boiling point in the 60s. The federal government published a report about all of this, saying that as many as 50,000 deaths a year were the result of a lack of pre-medical care. The report noted that you were more likely to survive being shot in Vietnam than in any city in the United States, because at least there they had medical care. Publicizing this report shamed the government into taking action. What a miracle. It's hard to imagine such a time. But the government saw this report, they received public pressure, and they then decided to provide money to address the problem. When this new funding became available, there was a gathering, a coming together of badass community activists in Pittsburgh. I imagine this motley crew forming like an Avengers movie, with each superhero coming in with their particular power. First, there was the community organizer named Phil Halen, who ran a civil rights organization in Pittsburgh focused on healthcare. He connected with a jobs training program called Freedom House, run by local African American men who had been delivering healthy food to folks in their neighborhood, in a place where it was otherwise hard to get good food and fresh vegetables. And then Phil brought in a local doctor that he found, someone who was particularly interested in this problem of emergency medicine. Together, the team formed the Freedom House Medics, who became the first emergency medical service in the country to be staffed by people with actual medical training. The Freedom House Medics signed a contract with the city of Pittsburgh as the first civilian paramedics, and they saved 200 lives in their first year of operations. The model of the Freedom House Medics was then replicated all across the country. If you've ever seen an ambulance staffed by someone with medical training, it's thanks to the Freedom House Medics. They have saved countless lives since then, and they changed our very understanding of healthcare, of who should get taken care of, who deserves that. Together, this team created a new kind of job. They created a jobs training program for African Americans in Pittsburgh who had been systematically kept out of other career opportunities, and they created a whole new branch of medicine. But because all of the first paramedics, nearly all of them, were African American men, the police fought them every step of the way. The police regularly tried to keep the paramedics from providing medical care in emergency situations, and in a number of cases, that meant leaving injured people on the side of the road while the police blocked access for the ambulances. The Freedom House medics persevered, though, and in spite of the police harassment, Pittsburgh had defunded the police, at least in this way. The city of Pittsburgh, and then nearly every city since, took away a significant part of their job and gave it to more qualified people. Pittsburgh and every other city in our country has been healthier and safer ever since. The Freedom House medics taught us many things. Number one, they remind us what James Baldwin said, that nothing is fixed, that change is possible. The earth is always shifting, the light is always changing. Second, they remind us that collective problems, systemic problems, require collective solutions, systemic solutions, which means that every single one of us has a role to play. In this case, I love that it was the nerdy government bureaucrats, bless them, who wrote the reports and then approved the funding. It was the Freedom House team delivering groceries who knew the needs of their neighbors and knew the layouts of their streets and neighborhoods. It was the doctor with the technical skills, and it was the community organizer who brought them all together to do together what none of them could have done alone. And third, they remind us that everyone has a role to play, and everyone's role is made more meaningful when we do it in collaboration together. They cast their lot together, and with no extraordinary power, they reconstituted some piece of this broken world. As Asani reminded us, each of us are tied to community and tied to struggle. So, beloveds, let's remember these stories. Let's remember our history as we imagine new futures and new possibilities ahead. Let us continue to ask ourselves how we will care for each other. Because when we speak of systemic racism, it's to say that racism isn't just about personal prejudices. It is built into those systems and institutions that shape our lives. It's the reason that roads and highways and public transit are placed where they are or not. It's the reason why our public schools are funded with local property taxes, which are based in segregated wealth. It's why our country has a weak inheritance tax, because when we ended legal segregation, we didn't want to end the wealth inequality that was created by it, and we wanted to ensure that that wealth inequality was passed on to future generations. It's why we still, so many years later, are still debating about who gets a vote and who gets a voice in our elections. Dr. King knew this. He spoke of this saying, whenever the government provides opportunities and privileges for white people and rich people, they call it subsidies. When they do it for the Negro and poor people, they call it welfare. The fact is that everybody in this country is on welfare. The problem is that we all too often have socialism for the rich and rugged free enterprise capitalism for the poor. That's the problem. I've seen this in my own life. A housemate of mine a few years ago was an asylum seeker from Mexico where he had faced abuse and torture, and he fled to seek asylum in the United States. But the process for seeking asylum, easier at the time, was that the first step was to go immediately to jail and to wait for your paperwork to go through. What other government benefit works like this? My spouse reminded me that as someone who owns her home, she's entitled to a mortgage tax deduction. And every year she gets that deduction. She doesn't even have to apply for it. And if she did, she would not have to go to jail to wait for the paperwork to go through. This is what we mean by socialism for the wealthy and rugged free enterprise capitalism for the poor. The poorer you are, or the more your community is a community of color, the harder the paperwork, the higher the fines, the higher the bar for the applications, the longer you wait in jail for your application to go through. This is the depth of racism in our country still. But we know nothing is fixed. Let me tell you another story. this one about firefighters. In the early days of the United States, no one saw it as the government's job to fund firefighters. So the first volunteer firefighting brigades formed to meet this need, but in many cities, they were a lot like a private insurance company. If you paid them, they would fight a fire at your house. But if you didn't pay, if you weren't a subscriber, they would watch it burn. It got worse from there, though. In some cases, the brigades worked more like a mix of violent street games and ethnic fraternal orders. They formed together around bonds of race and class, and they fought each other for territory and market share. A book called How the Irish Became White describes the situation this way. With firefighting as a pretext, the private brigades fought continuously over control of territory and extorted money from homeowners who had good reason to anticipate a fire if they failed to pay. Arson was high on their list of weapons, and one of their favorite tactics was to set a fire near the territory of a rival company and then lie in wait to attack them when they showed up. A report in 1853 said, quote, "There is scarcely a single case of riot brought before the courts that has not its origin in the fire companies." Can we just take a moment to imagine this scene, by the way? You are in your home and you look out your window and you see that your neighbor's house is on fire. And one gang of firefighters, the ones that started the fire, are there beating the heck out of another gang of volunteer firefighters in order to get more territory and more money and more opportunity for exploitation from them. And your first thought is, oh no, not again. For some time, though, this was the best we could do. For some time, this was the best answer our society could come up with for the question of how do we care for each other when our neighbor's home is burning. For some time, no one could imagine a better way. This was the violence of privatized fire brigades before we imagined a whole new way of organizing ourselves. You'll notice, by the way, that in all of the polarized political debates over government regulation, no one ever quite suggests that we reprivatize firefighters back to the racialized mob violence of the past. Most people, for a while, though, assumed the earth was fixed. They assumed that change wasn't possible. So the best one could hope for was to win at this game of corruption, rather than change the rules of the game. It's easy to laugh at the naivete of our forefathers, and I use the gendered language there on purpose. But I believe someday our grandchildren will tell the story of a time when wildfires ran rampant over our communities, while the privatized fossil fuel companies who caused the fires also went unregulated. And political leaders shrugged their shoulders and said how much they wished there was something to be done about such unspeakable violence. Perhaps our grandchildren will also be able to tell a story of how eventually the people came together to address the emergencies that faced them and learn to put out the fires and put an end to the economies of violence that created them. Beloveds, let's remember this history as we imagine new futures. So what does all this have to do with our purpose here? At the time of the firefighting gangs, there was perhaps a similar divide opening up in religion. At a time when mainstream Christianity had declared a false binary between the saved and the damned, between those bound for heaven and those destined for hell, our Universalist ancestors imagined a new possibility. They responded with the heretical belief that nobody was unredeemable and that no one was getting left behind, wounded on the side of the road. They said that no one was saved until we were all saved. They believed in a love unordinary. And later on, when humanism converged with universalism, we ended up with, I think, an even higher standard. One that says we shouldn't wait for the next life for salvation, that we can work to save each other here in this life. a belief that said we shouldn't wait until we get to the hospital or the funeral home to start treatment. We can start taking care of each other right away. I believe that the trajectory of humankind is a painfully slow process to stop fighting each other while our neighbors' homes are burning, and instead learning to put out the fires that are plaguing our people. Adrienne Rich said that my heart is moved by all I cannot save. I have to cast my lot with those who with no extraordinary power reconstitute the world. I love that Rich begins by acknowledging the limits of individualism, all that I cannot save. But by casting our lot with others, nothing less than the world is reconstituted. Friends, there was a time when a heart attack meant calling the police and praying for unlikely help from unqualified people, before we imagined new ways of caring for each other. There was a time when fighting house fires was only for those who could afford privatized insurance in shady deals with racist gangs, before we imagined that safety for one was safety for all. There was a time, still today, when we have socialism for the rich and rugged free enterprise capitalism for the poor. And there was a time, still today, when we have prisons for some and public education for others. A more universalist world means imagining better answers to the question of how we will care for each other. It means finding collective solutions to collective problems, coming together to do together what none of us could do alone. It means that everyone, every single person, has a role to play, and that everyone's role is made more meaningful when we do it in collaboration together. That we are each tied to community as well as to struggle, and each of those makes the other stronger. It means that imagining a new world is a possibility we can do together in community, that we can create a vision wider than any of us has alone, and we can create change beyond the work of any one of us. We can create a change with the love of our hearts and with the work of our hands. We can ensure everyone has a voice and everyone has a vote, and no one is left behind on the side of the road. Beloveds, may it be so, and may we make it so together. Amen. Our closing song was written by Rabbi Menachem Creditor. After witnessing the violent response to September 11th, he imagined a more peaceful response to violence, that we might respond to violence or attack with increased work for peace instead. The words are Olam Chesed Yibaneh. It means the world will be built with loving kindness. And I love that it doesn't quite specify whose job it is to do that building. So we might imagine that the work is ours. Would you repeat after me? Olam, Chesed, Yibaneh. Olam, Chesed, Yibaneh. The song goes like this. Olam, Chesed, Yibaneh. Yadai, 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 yadai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, Yadai, 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 Yadai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, Yadai, 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 Yadai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, Yadai, yadai, yadai. Please rise in body or spirit. Let's sing. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, yadai, 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 yadai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, yadai, 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 yadai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, Here we go. Olam Chesed Ibaneh. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. 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 A little faster. Olam Chesed Ibaneh. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. 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 One more time. Olam Chesed Ibaneh. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. Olam Chesed Ibaneh. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. Olam Chesed Ibaneh. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. Olam Chesed Ibaneh. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai.
Hello. Hard act to follow there. This service named the importance and the call to the work of justice in our lives and together through time. This week, you are invited to join us for a program to do just that. After service, we invite you to lunch and a program in celebration of the Voting Rights Act. This year, the Voting Rights Act celebrates its 60th anniversary. We are partnering with Reclaim Our Vote in the nationwide effort to make sure all Americans can exercise their right to vote. Youth in middle school and above are invited to participate. Reclaim Our Vote's mission is outreach and support to voters in communities of color, primarily in the rural South. The focus will be on Virginia state elections, as many major offices will be on the ballot this fall. Our task is to transcribe their words onto colorful, handwritten postcards that may continue to check out. You may continue to check out cards to write at home or stay to write in community every Sunday until mid-October. We invite you to join the worship, the program after with lunch, and the effort to support our ongoing work of nurturing a nation where leadership is accountable to all citizens. Come right to our Star King room after the service to join us. Finally, we invite you to join us for social hour after the service to be part of this community and our shared exploration and service in all the ways you feel called to. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. And now, Asani, I'm going to ask you, who lit our chalice this morning, to extinguish it, reminding ourselves that even though we extinguish the flame in our sanctuary, that we take it with us, the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the fire of commitment until we gather again. I'd invite us all to rise in body or spirit and join hands as we say our final blessing and benediction.
Beloveds, may we go forth in love. May we cast our lot with each other. May we remember that nothing is fixed as we look back to our history, tell our stories, and imagine new futures together. Go in love, go in peace, and go and be blessed as you are a blessing to others. Amen.
Amen.